Of all the venues of the USF2000 championship schedule, Toronto may be the most challenging. The differences of the pavement, the asphalt, the bumps. Every year, the track a little bit different. This time, today, these drivers getting set to go for their first of two races here at the Honda Indy Toronto. Hello, race fans. My name is Rob Howden, the voice of this USF Pro Championship presented by Cooper Tires, and maybe the driver with the most spotlight here this weekend, young Matt Clark from D-Force Racing. You were on with me in the preview last year, running USF Juniors. All we talked about was you getting an opportunity to race this race. Well, it's here. You're on track right now. How have things gone so far?
I can't believe it's finally happened. You know, when I signed the contract like almost a year ago to run this season, this is the date I circled. This is the weekend that we were looking forward to. It's been a solid weekend so far. As a rookie, it's tough to come in here and do well. So just kind of been intaking all information, and we're learning and hopefully push more in the races.
The track obviously a bit different than it was last year. There's some paved parts overall through the 3 sessions. Are you happy with your progression?
I am, yeah. I feel like we've made solid progress throughout the weekend. We had a bit of an issue in Q1 with a flat tire, so we rebounded from that this morning. Very quick on the U set. Just got to figure out, what we want to do on new tires.
All the racing you do down, of course, in the U.S., you get to come back here. What does it mean to race in Canada?
It's so special. I mean, I haven't raced at home in almost 3 years, so to be back here, friends, family, and the entire atmosphere of the city of Toronto is amazing.
I talked to James Hinchcliffe many years, of course, when he was here, and the pressure of being a Canadian running at the Honda Indy Toronto. The spotlight is on you. Are you feeling that pressure? I know you have sponsors here, you have family here. How are you?
It's not too bad. I like to say I work well under pressure, but it's definitely a lot. You're kind of being pulled in 18 million different directions all day. So we talked about before the weekend, we made a plan. So I'll kind of come back, hide in the trailer for about 20 minutes before the session, decompress, and get ready to do my job.
Obviously, you start better in race number 2 than you will here in race number 1. Your thoughts from deeper in the field. What do you do? What's the strategy going in?
Well, I'm going to be doing my rain dance.
You want the rain?
I want the rain. Need to make that happen for race number 1, and I think we'll be good if it rains. And even if it's dry, it's tough to pass here. Even though you have that long straight, it's very tight. So we're going to set up the car, pretty aggressive, and see if I can make something happen.
One of the things to watch for, I'm sure Mac will be looking for it as well. Chaos in turn 1, maybe turn 3. He'll look to capitalize if anything happens. But the bottom line is this is the first Canadian race here for young Matt Clark on his journey to the NTT IndyCar Series. Watch him throughout the day. And we get back from this break, I'll give you the full driver lineup.
We're like any normal family. We just get shorter wait times because we buy and book online at discounttire.com.
So easy.
Which gives us more time for things like...
Come on, Mom.
Ready? And it's all thanks to Kyle. Thank you. Get 30% shorter average wait time when you buy and book online at discounttire.com.
Let's get you taken care of.
And we are back trackside here at the Honda Indy Toronto. And again, as we talked to early in the pre-show here to Matt Clark, he was hoping for rain. Well, it has arrived. As those of you who tuned into the USF Pro 2000 program, we had rain halfway through to that one, a 4-lap dash at the end. A full wet racetrack for the drivers here in USF 2000, the middle rung on this USF Pro Championships ladder system. 18 drivers set to go here. The drivers are still ready to roll out here onto the grid as we kind of moved the schedule back a little bit here right now. We'll get things underway here momentarily. We'll start with the grid right now to get things rolling. Might as well knock that out before we get joined by one of our drivers from Exclusive Autosport, Yuvan Sooner. They're going to join us here in the booth. Let's get things underway again. 18 drivers in the field. Tail of the field was scheduled to be Joey Brienza. I don't know that Joey's going to start this race. I think he's going to sit this one out, potentially come back tomorrow. That means Avery Towns will be there in the number 17 at the tail of the field in the number 93 for Exclusive Autosport. Again, a wet weather run. We'll see which drivers are able to work their way forward. Row number 8 will have Gordon Scully in the number 19 for VRD Racing on the outside. And on the inside in the number 12 out of Houston, Texas, it's Maxwell Jameson for D-Force Racing, starting in the 15th spot. Moving now up to row number 7 on the outside. A couple drivers from Indianapolis, Indiana area. Elliott Cox on the outside in the Sarah Fisher Hartman Racing Development. Number 67, and on the inside, only his second weekend here in USF 2000, Logan Adams out of Plainfield, Indiana, for Jay Howard Driver Development. In the number 9, starting in the 13th spot. Row number 6 on the outside, the Canadian Mac Clark. We talked to Mac in the pre-show, the D-Force driver, last year's USF Juniors champion, racing here in USF2000 with that scholarship, moving his way up through the Discount Tire Scholarship Program. Mac Clark, again, out of Campbellville, Ontario, starting 12th. Watch for him to move forward here in what could be very tricky conditions. He'll start 12th alongside him out of Texas for Exclusive Autosport, the number 95 of Chase Gardner. Into the top 10 now, one of our 3 Canadians in the field, Nico Christodoulou out of Toronto, Ontario, Canada, here in the number 2 for VRD Racing. He'll start on the outside of row 5, P10. And on the inside, rolling up from Cornelius, North Carolina, one of our USF Juniors drivers from last year, the number 14, Sam Corey, scheduled to start here in the 9th position. We'll go to row 4 on the outside. A couple of top 10 starts for this driver out of Indiana. That is Al Morey for J. Howard Driver Development. Al in the number 7, starting 8th. And on the inside from Mexico for D-Force Racing, the number 10 of George Garcia. Up now to row number 3 on the outside. This driver here leading the points coming into the weekend from Atlanta, Georgia. A 40-point lead for Simon Sykes from Pabst Racing in the number 22 as he looks to try to win the championship and move to USF Pro 2000 next season. He'll start 6th outside of row number 3 alongside the driver he's been racing with all year long for the champion, multi-time winner on the season so far from Australia, Lockie Hughes in the number 8 for J. Howard Driver Development, starting in the 5th position. We'll go down to row number 4 on the outside, just 14 years of age out of Coconut Grove, Florida. Max Garcia in the Advanced Auto Parts Pabst Racing number 24. He'll set the roll off here from P4 outside of row 2. And a driver we saw impress here last year, looking to have a big weekend here out of New Zealand. Dad has made the flight over here to be part of it. Jacob Douglas for Pabst Racing in the number 23. Again, a top driver yet last year here, kind of his breakout weekend in his rookie season. Sophomore driver looking for another podium. He got one earlier this year at Road America. 17 drivers set to roll off and go racing here on the outside of the front row. 2 of them, of course, Nikita Johnson out of Gulfport, Florida, a winner earlier this year at the Grand Prix of St. Petersburg, so he can get around a street course, but what can he do in the wet? Just 15 years of age. Johnson for VRD Racing starting in the 2nd position. But if there's a driver with a lot of momentum right now, it's this one right here at Loveland, Ohio. Evagoras Papasavas for J. Howard Driver Development. A win at Mid-Ohio to break that nut, able to get the monkey off his back. And a couple of great runs in qualifying. Papasavas going to roll off from P1. A pole position start once again for the young driver out of Ohio. He will lead him to the line when we get set to go racing. Papasavas and Johnson on row 1. Douglas and Garcia on row 2. Hughes and Sykes on row 3. Garciarsis and Morey on row 4. Corey and Christodoulou, row 5. Gardner alongside Clark on row 6. Adams and Cox on row 7. Maxwell Jameson, Gordon Scully, row 8. And there'll be Avery Towns rolling out from 17th position. Again, looking like maybe a couple of minutes still before we get ready to go green and set the cars afire here with a call to command the engines. Let's bring in Todd Lewis, the voice of this Honda Indy here in Toronto. Todd, we saw a wild one here in USF Pro 2000. At least these young drivers are ready to go knowing it's a full wet race.
That's the interesting thing, is that they will not have to deal with the changing conditions, having to stop, change tires, spend a few minutes on pit road, and then go out and then try to get a handle on the evolving conditions of a wet and at times very slippery track with different racing surfaces, and try to complete 3 or 4 fast laps to end a race. They will start on the rain tires and at least get a pace lap around to sort of get the feel of the little bit before they start to hit speed.
And Todd, we can talk as much as we want to how slippery we think it's going to be. Let's bring in Yuvan Sundaramurthy, the driver for Exclusive Autosport, extensive experience, race winner in USF 2000, second year here in the USF Pro 2000 category. Yuvan, you were out there. You have firsthand knowledge. This track, as we know, tough as it is with pavement and concrete. You and I talked on the way over here. What was it like driving, going across those concrete patches?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for having me again. And it's a crazy thing here to be in the wet. There's only one thing wetter than or harder to drive in the wet than a street course, and that's Mid-Ohio. So these drivers coming from Mid-Ohio, we had a little bit of rain there too, so they're ready for this. And it's the concrete. The concrete is the main thing that makes it really difficult to drive in the wet. And this track has a lot of that. The whole apex of turn 3 is covered in concrete. The whole apex of turn 5. So we're going to have to take a look, as we saw in the USF Pro 2000 race with Miles Rowe and Jace Denmark going straight in turn 3 and Jordan Missig getting on the gas and losing it there. It's going to be important for these drivers to figure out. And I'm actually going to fight you a little bit there on what you said, Todd, because we started with a fully wet track. This track is a street course, and the main thing about a street course is they're made for drainage, our road courses aren't designed as much for drainage as these are, because these are made for regular vehicles. So the sun peeking out here and over the beautiful Toronto skyline. So I'm thinking we're going to get some fast laps at the end of this race, and it's going to be really important to pull a gap early. And the big thing is what team can do a better pit stop, because unlike other events, when it goes dry to wet, we get our 5 minutes of red flag time. But this time it's going to be whoever can do the pit the fastest. We might see some drivers come in after one lap.
So do you think we're going to have a dry line that quick?
And I'm gonna bring it back here to New Jersey 2021, where I raced for Pabst Racing in New Jersey. It was the same kind of conditions. It was wet, drying. Indy Pro race fully in the wet. Here, the USF Pro 2000 guys had the wet at the end of it. These guys are starting now on this wet track, and it's going to be really fast pit stops needed. Pabst Racing will be an important one to look at there, because they are known for their blistering fast pit stops.
And the key is you got to sit down and do the math on the delta, right? We're being told right now by race control they're still working on the racetrack right now. We'll get an update on terms of when we're going to go green. This is actually going to play, if it's not raining, going to play more into Juven's discussion here, Todd. Again, it's the delta.
Right.
How much time can you make up on pace to change for the amount of time it takes to change tires?
As we've seen, it was raining 10 minutes ago. The sun is starting to pop out now. You could start to see the front straight coming out of corner number 11 towards the start-finish line. That's already started to dry just a little bit. So you may be right. It might be a very quick lap, maybe two, and then teams are going to start making pit stops to put those slick tires on.
The only one issue is if you try to come in early, let's say you come in and put tires on and something were happened and went for a yellow and you've gone a couple, you could essentially go a couple laps down. You're going to go at least a lap down, maybe one or two when you come in to get, because then this is not a long racetrack. We're not talking like a Road America where we're 2+ in terms of lap times. This is a deal where our lap times are what we qualified at a 1:12, right? They're going to run a little, obviously run 15, 1:18, whatever it may be in the wet, but man, you go down a couple of laps in here, trouble. It's a strategy. I love it. I think it's great.
And that's the thing here too, is depending on what these guys do, a pit stop here is approximately about 50 seconds for a good pit stop to 1:10 for a rough pit stop. Obviously, we don't have our IndyCar pit guns and everything like that.
We talk about that all the time. Yeah.
Big rule that we need to keep an eye out is 3 mechanics are allowed over the wall. If you step that 4th mechanic out over the wall, then you're going to get a penalty. I think it's a 30-second penalty, so it's pretty significant.
So again, you talked about Pabst doing a great job for you at New Jersey. Again, it's not like that deal where we said all the guys over the wall, one guy on each tire. It's really the quick jack in the back. They do the front, they do the rears, and they've got to get it dialed in. So what are you saying at Delta? Is it about a minute and a bit to get tires done?
Yeah, and that 1:10 is actually pretty important, because that's the length of the lap time.
It is,
here.
yeah, indeed.
I think we'll see some really, really tight ones of drivers who come in. Earlier you come in, track's still wetter, so lap times on the track are going to be slower, but you're also risking yourself for slick tires on this dangerous Toronto circuit.
It's so tough, Todd.
We talk about the learning that you make and get all through the USF Pro Championships. Well, it's not often you're going to get strategy learning like this, deciding if you need to make a pit stop, the changing track conditions, how quickly your pit crew can get things done. But again, that's a part of the benefit of this system.
Yeah, and that's not something that these teams practice. It's not made for pit stops. These cars, you still have to pull a pin out of the tires.
Exactly.
You have to use your gun to get it off and then torque it down. And that's a big thing that some teams risk it sometimes. You don't technically need to use your torque gun. You can hit it on tight with a gun as long as you get that pin on there. And hopefully we don't see any flying tires, but you never know.
So what you've been telling us is we are not in for a kind of a cookie-cutter USF2000 race. We've got ourselves a storyline. There could be a lot of different intricacies to it, and we'll find out which drivers potentially pull in. As we had said before, Evagoras Papasabas for Jay Howard Driver Development set to roll off here. P1, again, if you're starting up front, if you're starting maybe in the back, do you roll the dice in the back, similar to a strategy you'd see go off strategy in the NTT IndyCar Series? Does one of the drivers at the back come in super early? And we'll see how it all plays out. Again, this track, you can see potential, some areas to drying. It's going to be interesting. Let's talk about this as well. Juven Sundar Murthy from Exclusive Autosport joining us. As these tires go from wet to dry and we start burning these tires up, how's the car feel when the super soft compound of the treaded rain tire starts to go away?
Yeah, and it's really difficult to kind of get used to. We had the pleasure of being able to drive these things in the dry at Indy when we had our mandatory wet tire switch, but they're really soft tires in general, and they're really soft sidewalls. And some people may ask, oh, soft tires, that means you're going to go faster. And the problem is you lose your surface area with those grooves.
That's it.
And less surface area plus a softer tire means way more wear. So we might actually see some of these drivers driving in the wet on purpose later on in the race, trying to get some opposite of temperature, I guess.
Trying to cool the tires.
Cool your tire
again,
down,
well,
cool
you
the
see
core.
that. Yeah, you'll be diving offline, trying to find the water on the racetrack. And again, easy to do potentially down the straightaways, but not much you can do when you work into some of these corners, like through, again, the 8, 9, 10 complex. We are getting ready to fire things up again, waiting for the call from race control. At this point here, we have heard nothing yet. They're still working on the racetrack. We do have, of course, ready to go. But yeah, the picture we're looking at, obviously the car's waiting in the grid, but even what are you seeing? That looks like a dry racetrack to me.
That's a dry racetrack, but it also shows you that surface difference. If you look down into the apex of the corner, that's your new pavement switch to the concrete.
Yep.
The concrete is a puddle, and then it's dry coming off. So it's going to be very, very sketchy situation.
Being told about 3 minutes to go before we fire things up. Once again, a better look around the racetrack. You can see the dry line essentially coming in to turn number 1. And again, have a look at the left side of the screen, the big screens around the track, or if you're watching at home here on the USF Pro Championships app or the YouTube channel, you can see the moisture on the concrete on the inside of the track. Here's a better look, again, coming into turn number 5, the Cooper Tire corner. The concrete here starting to dry up a little bit on the entry, a brand new patch there. This is the run through turn number 6, coming out of turn 5, a big sweeping corner. Again, down through turn 7 into turn number 8. As we know, you can see it drying again. This is, wow, you've been picked up on this pretty quickly. Again, we'll see. The strategy is going to be interesting. Normally, let's put it this way. Normally, the teams, once they get out and fire their engines up, the mechanics are done for the day. They're waiting to bring the car back to the paddock. This could be a day where we activate some of these guys even.
Yeah, and seeing these lines there, especially in the turn 7, which is a flat-out corner in the dry, definitely not a flat-out corner in the wet, it's going to be who has the confidence in their car first to go flat there, and that's a lot of time.
We saw it USF Pro 2000 where the first driver down into turn number 3 at speed in the wet was Miles Rowe. He went off. D'Orlando was able to check up. This time it's Papa Sabas and Nikita Johnson on the front row, which will roll him into turn number 1. We are looking forward to getting things underway. Once again, 17 drivers in USF 2000, the Cooper Tires Grand Prix of Toronto about set to go. All these drivers, of course, as we've talked about before, running the same spec engine built by Steve and Logan Knapp at Elite Engines. And we'll fire all of those engines up here momentarily as we are just waiting for the call from race control to get things underway. Papa Sabas and Johnson on row 1, Douglas and Garcia on row number 2, Lockie Hughes alongside Simon Sykes on row 3, George Garciarce and Al Mori on row 4, Sam Corey and Nico Christodoulou will be on row number 5, Chase Gardner and Matt Clark on row 6, Logan Adams and Elliot Cox on row number 7. Row 8 will be Nat Maxwell, Jameson, and Gordon Scully. And row 9 will have Avery Towns. Once again, the drivers are set and ready to go. They've been waiting to fire things up. The track rapidly drying. We're going to see a very interesting storyline play out as we get set to go for this race. These drivers here in this USF 2000 program. The race set for 20 laps or 45 minutes. We'll see how it all plays out here right now. And again, as I had said before, ready to rock and roll down on pit lane. Time to fire things up. 17 drivers ready to ignite the engines and get set to go. Let's head down to pit lane. 2 of our guests from Cooper Tires are going to help us out here today. For the command, Brad and Bowen Gilbert.
On behalf of Cooper Tires,
drivers, start your engines!
Another good one.
Loving this. I love to see fans getting into it, and the guests of Cooper Tires with a great command to fire up. It's motorsports. Let's have fun with it.
Indeed. Again, those of you joining in, my name is Rob Howden, joined by the voice of this event, Todd Lewis, and from Exclusive Autosport, USF Pro 2000 driver Yuvan Sundermurthy, multi-time USF 2000 race winner as well, and great to have him here with us to provide some insight. He actually had a chance to drive on this particular racetrack in wet conditions, but as he had said here early in the broadcast, this thing's going to go dry pretty quickly. Who will be the first team to try to come into the pits? He told us around 1:10, potentially the Delta, to come in to get the tire sheds. Remember, pit lane speed limiter, though. As soon as you get into pit lane, you're going to make that long crawl down to the end of pit out before you get rolling. So it's a little more than 1:10, but how much faster are dries going to be? And again, it looks very interesting as they come down into turn number 1. And Yuvan, you can speak as a driver. I would have no doubt all of these drivers on the radio with their guys because they're heading around. They're giving the input, right? The question, how is this track? Do you think we can go to dries?
Exactly, and all these guys are guaranteed are on their radio right now, talking with their teams, seeing what to do. And for drivers like Elliot Cox and Maxwell Jameson sitting there in the back of this starting grid, I'd be waiting for someone to make a mistake there early. If they put it in the wall, you get a minute 45 about, or a little bit more than that, 2 minutes almost for this pace car to make its way around the track, and that's plenty of time to get your lap in, to get your pit stop in.
If we get an early yellow, I think we're going to get busy on pit lane. This is going to be very interesting to see it again, see how it plays out. For a driver like Evagoras Papasavas, who knows he has speed in the dry, this obviously not playing for him. I think he figured he would have a really good race car, Todd, to be able to work his way forward. Out into the lead because, you got a great car. In perfect conditions, I got a car to beat here right now. Nikita Johnson's thinking the same thing. This really opens things wide open once again.
Yes, it's going to be interesting to watch in terms of championship implications. Drivers trying to get a little bit of heat into those tires. Now, even there, you can just see the car sliding just a little bit under some acceleration coming through the corners.
Yeah, you've been talking about that. There's Avery Towns getting on the throttle a little bit as well, trying to spool it up, get some heat into the rears.
No, that is very much
the concrete.
That's the concrete in turn 3. That is the part. That's the one track that we ever use first gear here. Is this track here in Toronto, because you go about 40, 42 miles an hour through that corner in the dry, up to 50 sometimes when it's nice out. It's not nice out right now.
It is not.
It's going to be really slick, and that first gear is a lot of power. You can't change your gearing in this series. So as they come to green, we got some dry line coming out, but that concrete's going to be slick, and we don't want anyone losing the rear.
Field setting up here right now. Good insight from Yuvan Sundaram. They're lining things up right now. Papasavas on the inside, Johnson on the outside, Douglas and Garcia, the two Paps drivers on row 2, ready to attack. But you wanted to up the excitement, those you trackside, we're going to get it. Here they roll onto the front straightaway. Wet tires, drying conditions. This one's going to be a barn burner in USF2000. They'll spool them up down into turn number 1, and we are green, racing into the opening corner, 2, 3 wide. Big move down the bottom for one of the Jay Howard driver development cars. They'll try to work their way through cleanly. Drivers further back, wisely, getting off the throttle a little bit, back on it early. They'll work their way through turn number 2, cleanly right now through that part of the racetrack. The spray, though, you'll see visibility minimal for the drivers further back, but the lack of spray, I think Todd is showing us exactly what we've got here right now. There isn't a lot of moisture, not a lot of collected moisture on the racetrack. We got to move for the lead already, down to the bottom of the racetrack, into the inside. Nikita Johnson, book it. He's through. Damage for the number 67 of Elliot Cox. Right front damage. He'll go off the racetrack. He's lost his wing. Here comes the full course yellow. And Yuvan, what do you think? Do we see somebody to pit lane?
Here we go. Here's the chance for it, although the crash meaning it's still slick there into the braking zone.
True enough. Yeah, true enough. Everybody fighting their way up there. There's Matt Clark trying to work his way forward. There were side-by-side Papasavas and Johnson out of 6. It is still Johnson as your leader. Papasavas goes to second. A good move forward. I think Lockie Hughes potentially up into the 3rd spot. 4th is Garcia, and we have a caution flag. Yellow is out. Now, do we see anybody potentially duck into pit lane here right now to make the change? The call's coming. There's your first driver. We got one of the D-Force drivers in the pit lane. Nico Christodoulou is in, and so is Maxwell Jameson. Todd, a couple of takers on lap number 1.
Interesting, just as Yuvan said, that we may see some drivers come in and make the switch. Now, under caution, this is going to help them, Yuvan. They have more time to make that change to the slick tires and not risk losing a lap.
Yeah, the only problem that's going to hurt them is possibly this time. Obviously, we have our 45-minute limit for this race, and with the late start, that's going to cut into that time slot with needing to make room for IndyCar to have their stuff. So they get their 20 laps, but will they get their 20 laps? That's the question. 20 laps is a lot of time, especially when the track keeps drying as fast as it is.
Yeah, the only balance is the longer they go if it just dries out on its own. Like, obviously not race running, but it's going to continue to dry out. Again, a couple drivers into pit lane, Christodoulou and Jameson. Cox out, as we know. So 2 drivers have come into pit lane. They're going to roll out here with, we would expect, at least probably scuffed tires and getting ready to roll. So this is going to be very interesting out of the gate already. There's likely the wing of Elliot Cox. We'll hopefully get a replay of that. We had the shot coming down into turn number 3 on the opening circuit. Contact further back. Elliot Cox started in the 14th spot, and based on losing the wing and the right front, potentially someone just getting on the brakes early, and he likely got into the back of them unless somebody came across. We'll get a chance to see the replay, but that's probably what I would expect.
Yeah, a difficult weekend continues for Elliot Cox, who has had some trouble in the previous sessions as well of practice and qualifying. Let's mention that pass by Nikita Johnson for the lead, too. That was a very nice pass headed into corner number 3 for the first time, uncertain of conditions, but made the bold move up the inside and made it stick.
You got to do it, right? I think even you do the same thing. I would think the best time to attack is on the opening circuit. You're as close as you're going to be. Sometimes you're 2-3 wide. Maybe you got a better run out of turn number 1, down through 2 into 3. You got to attack when the time is right.
Yeah, exactly. And when there's a crash back there, your team comes on the radio. They tell you there's a crash. Yellow's going to come, but you generally have half a lap. The series allowing the race to run like that to give the leaders some time to duke themselves out before they have to call that yellow before it gets dangerous.
Indeed. So here you go, folks. Johnson, your leader. Papasava second. Hughes third. Garcia fourth. Douglas fifth. Maury sixth. Sykes seventh. Garcias, Corey, Gardner, and Clark. Everybody's coming to pit lane unless you're the leader. Sykes into pit lane. Garciarsis, Clark, Adams, Towns, Scully. I don't know that I stay out. What do you think of this, Euban? This is going to be a dry race sooner or later. I know it's tough for the leader to pull into the pits, but, man, I just got to feel like, let's say we go clean and green to the end of this one here. Those guys are toast out there with the wets.
And that's the thing. You have to make the move now. If you don't make the move in this lap, you lose your time. And if it's not under yellow, you lose time. You have to make it early. The thing, though, is now they're coming out right in the back of the field. Like you said, these leaders, it's a dangerous game for them to play. Maybe they're coming in this next lap, although I don't know.
But then you go to the tail of the field
idea.
anyways, right? You had to be kind of the first guy in there to wait things to cycle out. But again, how's it play out in terms of another yellow comes out? I think you're right. I think probably everybody should have pit. They did not. Johnson, Papasavas, Hughes, Garcia, Douglas, Maury all stayed out on the racetrack, as did Sam Corey. He moves up. So did Chase Gardner. But Sykes, Garciarsis, Clark, Adams, Towns, and Scully all into pit lane.
So 6, 7, maybe 8 cars that have stayed out. Yuvan, how much faster are these cars going to be with the slick tires? I know it's going to be a bit of a feeling out process because there's still some damp areas, but they're going to have much more speed.
Guys, go a real quick jump in here because I think we're going to get a chance to see the replay. This is the end of the incident for Cox. You'll see him moving up here. We need to get the shot of them coming down the straightaway into turn number 1 for the first time. There's Cox, right front damage. Wing is already gone. And another one of the drivers having to check up behind him. That, I believe, is Scully. Indeed, he's pulling away from the incident there as well. Gordon Scully in the number 19. We know he went to pit lane to get tires as well. So if we can get the replay of them coming down the straightaway into turn number 1, that's going to give us a better look, I believe, at it. But again, this has changed. And exactly what you've had said from the very beginning, this track was drying very quickly. You can see the racing line, those who pitted early. I think you're going to benefit. We're going to see what happens at the end of this race. We're going back to green. We're already racing. So again, we'll see what happens here with Johnson, Papasavas, and Hughes up front. They're going to be searching for wet parts of this racetrack to keep those tires cool. Let's see what happens as they roll their way back out here again. The drivers in the back, the guys I think with the best opportunity now, Christodoulou 9th, Jameson 10th, Sykes 11th. They're all on the dry tires. They'll have to take care of themselves on the opening circuits, kind of tiptoe around and get a feel, but they will be significantly quicker later. Oh, there's drivers still in pit lane, I believe. Look how many guys have come across the line. The guys who have changed tires are not even back out on the racetrack. I think they're just getting rolling, coming back around. They're on the racetrack, but coming deeper from the field. So it looks like, really, I think, coming across the line, maybe 9 drivers. Here comes the rest of these guys through. Now, they are going to be significantly quicker. The guys making the best moves, Christodoulou and Jameson, the first drivers into pit lane. They are 9th and 10th, and at the tail of the grid. Literally, they can just take their time right now. There's no need to get aggressive here and try to work your way by. Just settle in. You guys are in the opportunity because you look back. Simon Sykes 9.5 seconds behind the rest of the field. If we get a yellow, it stacks them back up. But if we go to the end, Christodoulou and Jameson Todd are going to be in the spot.
Oh, what a great move to jump in early to take advantage of that caution period, make the switch to tires, because it looks like this is only going to improve in terms of conditions going forward. More and more of a dry line. Now, if there's a few more sprinkles around, that shakes things up further. I may as well throw that out because we're expecting that at some point this afternoon. But in the meantime, we're going to get some sensational racing action.
Indeed, we're going to keep a look at it. Euban, you got more to add?
Yeah, and here you can look at our field farther back, the people that did come to pit lane. Sykes 9 seconds behind the lead pack there with Jameson. But like I said, the Paps Racing crew able to put in a pit stop, puts him 6 seconds ahead of 12th place Matt Clark. 2 seconds ahead of Scully in 13th, and then 4 more seconds ahead of Garcia.
Yeah, and what we'll jump on very quickly, guys, when they get settled in is lap times. That we need to find out what the delta is. Anytime you change from wet to dry, dry to wet, you're going to see drivers kind of crisscross over. At one point in the track, the drivers in the dries are going to be faster than the drivers in the wet. And Matt Clark laid down a 1:18.9, already quicker than Papasavas. So Clark, although back by 3.1 seconds, 17 total on the leader, was significantly quicker, a half a second. That delta is going to continue to change. This track gets drier and drier. There's a big move by by Chase Gardner up over the curbing on the inside. He's going to get a spot. I want to see he's potentially gone to P4 right now. Maybe a little further back, but we'll see as they work their way through. A couple of the drivers, I think, further back have just come out as well. So Papasavas is the leader. Guys that came out just on the dries are in front of the guys in the wet because the pit stop took a little bit longer. As Juven had said, Pabst Racing doing a tremendous job to get Simon Sykes back in. So we'll look at lap times when they come back around here, and we'll reset. We'll find out where we are as they come out of turn number 11 across the line once again. They're all stacking up behind Garcia there. So Papasavas right there with Johnson. He is your leader. It's Papasavas and Hughes, second and third. Garcia fourth. There he is right there. Sam Corey, Chase Gardner, fifth and sixth. Big stack up behind him. Douglas, Christodoulou, Maury, Jamieson right there as well. But remember, Christodoulou on the dries, he's up to eighth. I think he's in the catbird seat right now, Todd.
Could very well be making that pit stop early. And again, we'll continue to watch the lap times. Christodoulou's last time by a 1:20.2, not as quick as the leaders, but and this is what it's going to shake out over the next little while. It's going to be interesting to see how those lap times improve as the conditions improve and if they can close up the ground on the front runners.
The key for Christodoulou is to be patient right now. You do not need to overcook it. You know you're going to be faster than all of these drivers. Clark down to a 1:16.2. He was over 2 seconds faster than Johnson. Clark coming in the number one. He is 14.4 seconds behind the leaders, but as I said, 2.5 seconds faster than Nikita Johnson. It's Christodoulou, though. He's at the spot, a 1:20.2, but only even because he's caught up in the traffic right now.
Yeah, Matt Clark figured this out really fast. 2 seconds, almost 3 seconds faster than Simon Sykes that lap. Caught him up already. Half a second gap behind Sykes. Sykes 7 seconds to Jamieson. But it's going to be important to keep an eye on these Cooper tires, and the Cooper Rain tires built really well. Even in these dry conditions, there's no super steep fall off that we expect normally with the rain tire this soft.
Indeed. One of the key things, remember, these guys are running the racing lines. Oh, there's a couple of guys touching the wall. That was the 7, I believe, of Maury. I think maybe the 14 of Corey tapping the wall as well. For the drivers in the dry to make a pass, you got to go offline. Offline is still wet. So when you try to make that move for a pass, it potentially could still be wet. So again, watching lap times. Clark again a 1:17.1, about a half second faster than Johnson, trying to work his way back forward. Big lock up further back there for, I believe, Al Maury in that number 7. We'll have a look at him again. This is this scrap here. That's a good fight there between Garcia and Gardner. That's per P4. Christodoulou kind of watching it happen. And Nico just needs to bide his time, use those dry tires, and get a big jump when he can. Here comes Gardner looking to the inside of Garcia. You got to watch yourself there. Tries to throw it down the bottom, and this is a big move here. Now there's Corey trying to make a move to the inside as well. He's trying to get by Christodoulou. Corey's on the wets, Christodoulou on the dries. He's just trying to make the move happen and be very smart. He will be significantly quicker than those drivers in front. Only 6 laps down, a 20-lapper, 14 to go. Watch for Christodoulou to try to get Gardner down here, I believe, into turn number 1. Good opportunity for him to get a better run at 11. He'll be able to get that drive down to the bottom, and here he comes down to the inside. Book it. Christodoulou making the move to P5.
Oh, yeah, this is what we're going to expect to see for the rest of the race. You see Jamieson moving up. Matt Clark continues to move up. He's into the top 10 now. Simon Sykes following along.
Clark, 2.5 seconds in the leader faster again, 11.5 back. Matt Clark asked for the rain. He got the rain, but he's now on the dries making the move forward, so it did not play out. Here's the drivers up front. Look at this battle here. We're seeing a little further back. Johnson, Papasavas, and Hughes 5 seconds out on the leaders, but the scrap now is Garcia, Gardner, Christodoulou, Corey, all in there as well. Max Jamieson getting himself in the fight here too.
Nico's only chance of really making this win work. He's definitely in the driver's seat right now to do that, but he's got to pass these guys before Clark catches up to him.
I was going to say, he's got to start getting aggressive right now. This is the point right now where the leader's potentially stretching away a little bit. Here comes Clark to make a move to the inside of Gardner as well, so move Matt Clark up a couple of spots. He gets by Chase Gardner. He is the man on the move right now as Gardner went back a little bit. We'll reset the grid when they come back across start-finish as the fight is on. There's a big move coming out of the corner as well. It's Johnson and Papasavas, 1-2. As they try to pull away up front on those wet tires. There they are. There's the gap back. Again, Look at this move coming to the inside. Clark's going to get another spot. Book it for Clark. He gets by Jamieson. He'll go to P7. The driver out of Milton, Ontario, Canada. Milton, Campbellville, whatever you want to call it. He's a hometown boy. This is his race, and he has worked his way now up into P7. What a great run for Matt Clark.
Terrific run, followed by Simon Sykes and Douglas rounding out the top 10. But you mentioned Nico Christodoulou, who has to put on the charge and improve 2 seconds quicker than Papasavas and Johnson on the last lap, and currently running third.
Clark up around the outside of Corey, and he'll have the spot coming in. Corey's going to defend from Jamieson, so Matt Clark now into the 6th position, I believe. That's the driver on the move. Again, Sykes back to 9th. He was quick early with P9 right now. As Johnson, Papasavas 1-2, and it has been Christodoulou getting by Hughes. The driver who made the first guy to throw on the tires now finds himself into 3rd spot. Some aggressive racing further back. We have contact coming out a little bit, but look at this, 3 wide. That's Garcia, Corey, Jamieson. Garcia goes back a couple of spots. Christodoulou last time by 1.5 seconds faster than Johnson, 5.4 back. We're not even to the halfway point. Nico Christodoulou, the call from VRD Racing. Key to bring him in right after that opening incident with Elliott Cox. He is going to be the leader here in a couple of laps, although I think a driver who's ready to challenge could be Matt Clark as well. Last time by, he was faster than Christodoulou. No, he was actually just getting by Hughes, so Christodoulou 1:14.3. Euven. That's a fast lap now. We're race lapping.
That is 3 seconds that lap that Christodoulou caught Papasavas. It's going to be a really cool battle here, although there's not much Papasavas and Johnson can do. They're sitting ducks at this point.
I 100% agree. There's not a lot they can do. Salvage a top 5 if they're lucky. The drivers on the drives trying to work their way forward. We're only coming to the halfway point of this race right now, and Nico Christodoulou, the driver on the move, as he's trying to work his way to P1 to see if he can't get a win here in his debut in USF2000 here in 2023. Can he get it done? He's a GB3 regular with VRD over there. Their program with Manor Motorsports. Let's see what he's able to get, or Arden rather. Let's see what he's able to get done here.
Was just going to say, what a way to make your debut in the USF2000 series presented by Cooper Tires is to make a bold call on strategy during an early yellow flag, as we've got cars all throughout the field dicing it
Well,
up.
I got to give these guys props. You've even leaned back in the chair. They're running good. They're giving each other some room right now.
Yeah, they definitely are, and Simon Sykes needs to make some moves now. Oh, that's a big crash right there in turn 11.
Yeah, so a driver's gone off in turn number 11. Big shot, not it coming through the 11 complex earlier on. So trying to figure out who that is falling down the order. It might be Jacob Douglas potentially, who had some jump, or maybe Scully as well. Douglas is in the pit lane here right now, folks. He's come in to put tires on. Good call for Douglas at this point here. He's going to fall down the order, but he'll have the tires on and get able to come back out. That was Scully, Gordon Scully. Contact, caution is out, and will freeze the field. Everybody locking things down. Johnson, Papasavas, Christodoulou, Clark was the last time by. Wow.
How have you enjoyed the first half of this race?
This is what I'm all about. I love when we have events like this. This is crazy stuff here. As Euven had said, figuring this track was going to go dry very quickly. He was bang on. The driver who was on track earlier today makes the call. 10 laps in. This is a dry race to the end. Now, again, here's the thought. What do you do if you're Johnson and Papasavas? Those drivers up front. Papasavas has gone to pit lane. So there you go. These guys are saying this is not going to work for us. We're going to get chewed up when this is all said and done. Johnson stays out. Papasavas into pit lane. Douglas is into pit lane. Here comes Gardner as well. Gardner's into pit lane. Lockie Hughes, Garcia. So the drivers who rolled the dice and did not go for it early are paying the price right now. They're going to fall down the tail of the order. The drivers really in the catbird seat right now, I think, are going to be Christodoulou, Clark, and Sykes. Those are the 3 drivers I think you're going to end up seeing on the podium when we're all said and done.
Yeah, and that's an interesting call by the VRD camp with Johnson there, not pitting. I know he's in the lead, but this is going to really put him on the back seat now. All these guys behind him now on slick tires, and as we've seen by Clark's laps, 1:14, that's almost 4 seconds a lap faster than what these guys are able to do on rain tires, and it's just going to keep getting worse.
I agree. I 100% agree. Nikita Johnson, again, the call, we talk about it. Anytime you're leading, I don't care what it is, the first driver in the pit lane, you just don't want to do it, right? You don't want to set the grid. You want to stay out. Track position. But just with the way this track has evolved with the drying of the facility, he's still out there on dries. The guys behind him, again, I think Sam Corey, I believe, potentially still on the wets. I don't know whether he changed early as of yet, but a number of drivers have worked their way up. So here's your new look top 10. Johnson on the wets. Then it's Christodoulou, Clark, and Sykes on the dries. Unsure yet on Sam Corey if he's on the dries or the wets in the 14. Jameson's on dries in 6th. So as is Adams, Garcia, Towns, and Papasavas. Somehow Papasavas back out on track into the 10th position. And again, contact, we know Brienza didn't start. Contact for Cox on the opening lap. Douglas in the pit lane. Scully in the wall. So we're going to probably have 15 drivers still when we go back to racing at green.
That's kind of, to me, what makes the decision to keep Nikita Johnson out even more curious. As we've lost a few cars already, the other cars had already decided to make pit stops. It would seem to make sense that you would bring him, even though he is the leader, bring him in to change to slick tires.
Yeah, and again, interesting call there, but there he pits now, so that just put him back 5 positions that he didn't need to lose. So interesting call there.
Well, you think about that. So it was he and Papasavas that were kind of coming to the yellow. Papasavas is back on the racetrack in 10th. He's going to go to 9th. Johnson's going to go all the way down, likely to 14th, maybe.
13th lap.
No, yeah. Douglas is in pit lane. We thought he was changing. Douglas is actually done. He's down 2 laps already. So I don't know that Douglas. I don't know he's going to be able to get back onto the racetrack. That's interesting. There's Lockie Hughes in pit lane as well. Lockie is right there. He has not put lap number 10 in either. So Christodoulou obviously getting the lead now as we saw Johnson pit. So it's Christodoulou, Clark, Sykes, Corey, and Jameson now the top 5. Adams in 6th, Garciarsis in 7th, Towns, Papasavas, and Garcia your top 10. Johnson to pit lane to get his tires. But Lockie Hughes second place in points, along with Johnson. They're tied for second in points. What a swing for Simon Sykes, an opportunity to stretch that point lead, Todd, even more.
Well, right, because now he'll restart this race in 3rd position behind Nico Christodoulou and Clark. It'll be 2 Canadians on the front row trying to hold back the championship leader because Matt Clark, who is currently sitting in 4th, hasn't given up on his chances at this championship either in the USF2000 series. So could be a very interesting restart, to say the least.
Indeed. Clark, of course, back there in the 4th position, 65 points back, but that 40-point lead coming in for Simon Sykes. Remember, as soon as he can if he gets to 100 points at the end of this weekend, there's only a triple header coming. Not that he's going to do that. He would essentially have to get 60 more points than Lockie Hughes and Nikita Johnson. Not really in the position to do that as of yet, but there's a possibility that he could really cement this thing down if he's able to be smart here and bring it home with the top 3. Literally top 5 right now for Sykes, with Hughes now down in 14th into pit lane. That's huge for him. Johnson in 12th position right now. This is a chance for Simon Sykes to be very smart and potentially really get a firm grasp on the championship. So again, pit lane is now filled with a pace car. We are ready to go back to racing. Nico Christodoulou on the point here. Clark, Sykes right there. Hey, this is a race right now. This isn't just, had we gone all the way to the end, I think Christodoulou would have been in the position. Well, now with a dry racetrack, we're going racing, and we know how quick Sykes is. This will be a battle moving forward right now as we're going to go back at it. When they come across the line, it'll be lap 13. 7 laps remaining, green flag flying, and we are back to racing. Big move to the inside. Clark having a look? No. Further back, you see a deep move down to the bottom for one of the Jay Howard cars. I believe that might have been Papasavas going to the inside of Avery Towns. That was a pass for P7. They'll work their way now out of turn number 2, the long run down the straightaway, and here goes Clark. He's right down to the bottom. Sykes is going to try the outside run on Clark. Check it out in turn number 3. Who's it going to be? Down to the bottom of the racetrack. Sykes goes around the outside. He's going to, I think, take second away. Christodoulou, though, holding on to the spot. Sykes goes to P2.
And Christodoulou is going to use those skills that he developed in USF Juniors here. USF Juniors, much more of a racy vehicle. It's a lot closer, and there are slower vehicles with the same amount of body and downforce that these things have, so they race really, really well. And that's where you learn your defense moves.
He's done a lot of racing in GB3 as well over in Europe. A lot of wet weather racing over there, more than we would have here. I don't want to say it always rains over there, but they do have a lot of wet weather racing, a lot more than we have here in North America. Look at this fight further back. Drivers throwing it through turn number 8. We'll reset the top 10 for you when they come back by, because you know the opening lap here is going to have a lot of action. These drivers really going at each other. They'll work their way here to put lap number 14 down. 14 down. 6 to go. Christodoulou leads. Sykes into second. Clark third. Adams. Logan Adams up into fourth. Only his second USF2000 race. What a fantastic drive. The grandson of Indianapolis 500 driver Mark Dismore, a legendary name in the karting ranks, and a fantastic run here for Adams. P4 for Jay Howard driver development. And again, they'll work their way up. Corey runs fifth. Garciarces in sixth. Garcia, Papasavas, Towns, and Johnson. Sykes looking for the lead around the outside. And again, this is not a race that he needs to win, although he wants it. A second-place finish would be enough here as he goes, I believe, potentially to the inside. He may have the lead. Sykes, I think, goes to P1, and he's going to bring Clark with him. Indeed, he is. Simon Sykes goes to the lead. He is P1 right now. Christodoulou holding on, I believe, to third. I think Clark able to get through. Excitement here on lap number 15. Right there, Logan Adams by himself now. Sam Corey, I thought he may have been on the wets. He may be on the dries. Contact, driver to the wall in turn number 8. That's the number 10 of Garciarce. So yellow flag will come out. Contact, we saw drivers give each other room early on. Not here on lap number 15. They come together. The scrap for 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. Ends up with Garciarces hard into the wall on the outside of turn number 8. Yellow flag flying, lock down the field. And this may be the end of this one with 5 laps remaining. It'll be 4 to go next time by. Garciarces with the front and rear wing damage. The whole right side, left side of the car as well. So Garcia goes up to 5th. Papasavas to 6th. Gardner up into 8th. 9th is Corey. And Avery Towns now up into the 10th spot. I'll tell you, Todd, I felt like it was starting to get interesting. Drivers, I think, were getting a little bit anxious to try to find ways by. We saw a bunch of 2-wide racing, and you can't do that lap after lap through turn number 8.
I wonder if it's almost a victim of circumstances, trying to get as much as you can what's left, and there's the car just getting loose, coming out through, by himself, coming through corner 8, going through the apex. The back end just steps out, and there is nothing you can do, Yuvan. You're kind of along for the ride at that point.
Yeah, I made the same mistake in practice 1 yesterday, so if you get a little deep there, it's super slick on the outside, especially with this water here now. Offline, it's going to get really slick.
And you could see he wasn't right down to the apex. The car coming into the braking zone, trying to get that rotated to get through turn number 8. And at that point, the rear end came around the minute he got into that concrete patch on the apex of turn number 8. So that is a yellow coming out. Now I will say this: the AMR IndyCar safety crew has done miracles before in terms of getting us back to green flag. Lap 16 will be recorded this time by the stripe. 14 laps to go. Even if we were to go green next time by, it would be 3 laps remaining. One key thing is the tow truck, when they get a hold of them, will not have to make a big run around the racetrack. It's right there. They'll be able to bring them right into pit lane, back to the paddock. So they'll do their best to get that car up on the hook. They'll clean up all the pieces, the front and rear wing of the D-Force car of Garciarces. He's fallen down to 13th spot. Jacob Douglas in 14th. Hughes 15th. A blow for the championship contender Hughes. He's going to watch Sykes pull away. He is P1 right now. Simon Sykes in the position to potentially stretch that margin. Remember, Hughes and Johnson coming in tied for second place in points, 271-40 back. This is going to be at least, I would say, probably a 10-point move for Sykes. He may go 50-plus up with 4 races to go. And again, Simon Sykes trying to get it done here for Pabst Racing. And let me just throw this out there. When it all started, we talked about changing from wets to dries. Old Sundar Murthy over here had it figured out. He said that Pabst Racing was one of the fastest drivers, our team's getting tires changed. It worked for Simon Sykes.
Yeah, I've been doing this for a couple of years.
Not his first rodeo, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, I remember seeing Yuvan come in early in that USF2000 program, like so many drivers we've had coming into this USF Pro Championship, spending time in the F1600 ranks. Of course, F1600, a great training ground for many young drivers. Simon Sykes, of course, as well, a former SCCA National Championships runoff winner in the F1600 category as well. So it's Sykes, Clark, and Christodoulou. A couple of Canadians sit in second and third. Bring out that Maple Leaf flag, folks. What a great run for the 2 drivers here, essentially calling Toronto home. Again, Logan Adams, the young driver out of Plainfield, Indiana, for Jay Howard Driver Development in the Comet Kart Sales number 9. What a good run for him, staying out of trouble. He had some issues there in qualifying and looped it, lost his fastest lap. but really strong for the young driver Adams. I'm really impressed with what he's doing here this week, and I've known Logan since he was a young cadet kart racer, watching him come up. Of course, his family owns Newcastle Motorsports Parks, one of the premier karting facilities in North America down in Newcastle, Indiana. So he's got lots of laps there for sure, but really impressing us here. I did some F4 racing this year. We expect to see him full-time in the USF Pro Championships in 2024. Then right behind him, Max Garcia, just 14 years of age for Pabst Racing. He runs 5th. Papa Savas up to 6th. And Todd, how crucial was that? Even though he held out on the rain tires early, he was really the first guy in on the yellow to get back in. As we know, the issue happened, of course, for Johnson. They're right there right now in 6th and 7th. That's actually played out very good for both of those drivers having waited.
It absolutely could have been a lot worse than it did. It's if we had continued to run green prior to that, our second yellow of the day when Johnson and Papasavas did come in. I mean, they could have been in much worse position in terms of what the ultimate finish is and in terms of the overall results. But we'll see. We're still hoping to get this back to green before we run out of time here at the Honda Indy Toronto. The AMR safety crew doing their best to clear that area pretty quickly, and they're just getting that car on the hook and pulled back behind the wall.
That looks pretty good. There's a possibility we can get things going here. Yeah, so they're there. It is cleaned up. And again, we're just coming through 5. I would expect we're going to go green flag racing this time by. How about a 2-lap dash for the win here, the front end of a doubleheader for USF2000, the Cooper Tires Grand Prix of Toronto. Those of you who are in the grandstands enjoying yourself, we hope you like the future stars of the NTT IndyCar Series putting on a show for you. Same goes for those of you at home. Always love the fact that we get lots of guys in the chat on YouTube watching these events from around the country and around the world. I would think we're going back to green here indeed. Here we go. The pace car will make its move to pit lane, and it's going to go in the hands of Simon Sykes. Mac Clark trying to win here on home soil as well. Christodoulou the same. Can one of these two Canadians stand on top of the podium in victory lane? 2 more laps to go. Call it about a minute or 2.5 minutes of racing. They'll work their way out. The dry line is there. We are dry racing. Back out of turn number 11. Sykes in the Pabst Racing 22 rolls on the loud pedal. Back to green flag racing, and it'll be the drag race down into turn number 1. Down to the bottom of the racetrack goes Clark. He does not want to lose that spot. More aggressive action from Logan Adams. He'll take a peek to the bottom of Christodoulou. He's trying to go to the podium through turn number 2. They'll be side by side coming down Lake Shore Boulevard. Adams and Christodoulou battling it out for third. That's going to open the door here for both Sykes and Clark. Garcia bump drafted Adams all the way down the straightaway into turn number 3. Hold your breath, folks. They're coming to the inside. And Garcia all the way to second as Clark has to check up. Garcia, Clark's going to go back to P5. This opening lap back has been hectic. Clark, one driver losing a wing, one of the Jay Howard cars. It might be Papa Savas. I think he's lost a front wing off the car. Balance will go away for the Jay Howard driver development car. He's going to have to really tiptoe his way through these corners with 0 front downforce. An aggressive move to the inside for Garcia. He goes from 5th to 2nd. It's Adams still holding on to the spot here in 3rd. Look at this scrap. White flag will fly this time by. 1 more to go in USF 2000. Simon Sykes, Todd, out front.
Oh, what a move by Simon Sykes to just hold the inside line down in towards corner number 3, knowing that the battle was coming behind him from 5th place all the way up through 3rd towards 2nd, and Simon Sykes just holds his line and follows through.
Mac Clark from 2nd back into 5th. He makes a move to the inside of Christodoulou. He'll go to 4th, but he will be knocking it for sure. He will not be happy having lost 2nd with a chance to potentially go for the race win. But again, for Clark, just trying to get a good result here. Contact again, further drivers back there, coming across each other's bow through 2. Clark's on the inside. Christodoulou on the outside. That's for 4th and 5th as Sykes holds the spot. Garcia and Adams. And again, the run into turn number 3. Clark trying to hold on. He's P4 right now with Christodoulou all over the back. It's the Canadians running 4th and 5th. Sykes, Garcia, and Adams, 1, 2, 3. And if Simon Sykes can bring this thing back to start, finish, and get a win, he is all contact. Driver's got around. That is Avery Towns has looped it coming out of turn number 5. That's the tail of the field. That's not going to bring out any kind of a yellow that we need to worry about. We'll work our way to the end. Clark trying to hold off from Christodoulou into turn number 8. He's got the spot. Look at the gaggle further back. Almost contact there as well for Johnson. He's on the inside of Gardner coming through 9. Oh, what a final lap. Out of the corner, though. How big is it for this young driver? It's going to be a Pabst Racing 1-2. But Simon Sykes is going to win here in Toronto. 2/10 of a second ahead of his teammate Garcia, the point leader, scoring a massive victory in his opportunity and quest to win the scholarship to move to USF Pro 2000 in 2024. It's a win for Sykes, his closest championship contender, Nikita Johnson, in 7th position. Call that at least a 10, I want to say 12-point push for Sykes. He could have a 52 to 53-point lead heading into race number 2 tomorrow. Pabst Racing, though, 1-2. And maybe the drive of the day, Logan Adams coming home from 13th to 3rd. I guarantee you there are a bunch of people watching at the Racers Grill at Newcastle Motorsports Park, a place I go to 4 or 5 times a year. They're going to be thrilled for their young driver, the 3rd-generation car racer, 4th generation in the sport. Emerson Dismore started the longest-running karting company, Comet Kart Sales. This is a 4th-generation karting family, and now they have a podium finisher here in USF 2000.
Amazing final lap with Garcia and Adams clinching those final 2 podium positions. It looked like Matt Clark, Nico Christodoulou might be fighting it out for 2nd and 3rd until we got to corner number 3 when all the pressure came from behind and things got shuffled up at the top of the field.
Well, listen, that was Max Garcia. He got a really good run out of turn number 1. He parked it to the inside, was right on Clark. The minute Clark opened the door, Garcia dove to the inside, and that's how it happened for sure. Let's come back to the expert here, Yuvan Sundaramurthy. You've won races in this category before, USF 2000. I'll tell you, Yuvan, that was a fun one to watch.
Yeah, I told you strategy would come into play. I'm not going to say I called
Don't
it.
Don't toot your own horn right now.
But, yeah, it was a great race, and Pabst Racing managed to getting that 1-2. That was a mega move by Max Garcia there into turn 3, coming from a mile back, it looked like, and was able to make it stick. No contact, which is exactly what you want to see at a street course like this.
Yuvan, what do you think? Do you want some rain tomorrow?
Oh, we'll see.
We'll see.
Starting in the back, so it's going to be – I'm going to need something to move forward, and I'll take some rain.
Well, Yuvan, thank you so much, man. Great job.
Thank you for having me.
Yuvan Sundaramurthy, folks from Exclusive Auto Sport, the USF Pro 2000 driver. Tremendous job helping us out here. And the celebration already beginning for Simon Sykes, working his way here into victory lane. There's his team owner, Augie Pabst. They want this USF 2000 driver championship. They've won the team championship before, but the driver championship has thus far eluded them. They are on a position to potentially do it. Simon knows it. He is feeling good about this. Folks, if those of you tuning in live here on the USF 2000 or USF Pro Championships app or YouTube channel, don't go anywhere. After this quick break, we will be back with victory celebrations.
What a job by Simon Sykes, Max Garcia, and Logan Adams.
One of the calling cards of the USF Pro Championships presented by Cooper Tires is exciting wheel-to-wheel racing. And you can watch every lap on the USF Pro Championships app and YouTube channel. But if you want to go in deeper, check out our mini documentary series, The Climb, brought to you by Discount Tires. This new episode dropping now, covering everything that happened at the USF 2000 and Pro 2000 races at Mid-Ohio. Nothing more stressful than a final lap trying to win your first race in a program like USF 2000 with a veteran driver, 3-time winner on the season, and potential championship contender hot on the gearbox. This is where you get it. You have to make the move coming out of the keyhole. This is where it's going to happen. They'll work their way down the back straightaway. He is right up on the gearbox, coming down to start and finish. Trying to get his first win here at USF 2000. Out of the final couple of corners,